There we go. There we go. Thank you, everybody, for joining us today. And my name is Craig Willis. I'm the president of Forest View PTA. And uh, welcome to our first Healthy Living Series session. Tonight's session is going to be about social emotional learning, and it's going to be presented by our very own counselor, Mrs. McNeal. And thank you for joining us. And Mrs. McNeal, take it away.
Everyone, thank you so much for being here today. We'll see if this works. So not my usual way to show it, but it's all right. So I am.
Can you hear Mrs. McNeal okay? You can do a thumbs up or, okay, got
Okay,
it.
great. And also what I was thinking too is since I have a raffle here, maybe we can get the names of our guests online and give them a raffle ticket too, so that we can get something maybe possibly. Okay, we have the whole entire time now, so don't worry. Okay, so thank you guys so much for coming. I'm excited to do this for the very first time with our families. Come on in. And so thank you very much for taking the time to do this. So let me just share a little bit about me. This is a huge picture. Looks different when I'm on my computer, right? This one. I have been in education for about 30 years. 20 of it has been in school counseling, and previously I was a classroom teacher. So I have been doing this for quite a long time. This is my family. I have a husband and two children. My son is 23. My daughter is 18. And this was a few years ago when we went to New York, and it was absolutely freezing, which is why we're kind of in the getup that we were in. We went on a little cruise tour, and it was outside the whole entire time. We weren't expecting that. So we're here, and just a side note, and I don't want to say this in a negative way. My son is my biological son, and my daughter we adopted when she was 13. So a lot of the things that I speak about are my own personal experiences as well as professional experiences too. Okay. And let me just share a little bit about what my role here is at Forest View. So as the school counselor, my caseload here is about 580 students is what we have here. And I go into all the classrooms and I teach classroom lessons such as bullying prevention, that's what this month is focusing on. So I go into all the classrooms as well as teaching safety lessons to our younger students. And I do a lot of friendship lessons and test anxiety as we get a little bit closer to the testing season. You'll also see me running a lot of small groups here, and these are our tier 2 groups is what we call them. And they're usually students are selected or suggested by teachers if there's maybe some skills that they might be missing, or from parents if there's something that you're thinking that your child could benefit from. And the topics will range anywhere from social skills, friendships. It could be if parents or families are changing, whether that's going through a divorce or separation, or we've had students get adopted while they were here. So many different topics that I'll offer for the smaller group setting. And they go from kindergarten all the way up to 5th grade. And then every once in a while, I'll meet with students individually if there are things that they need to work on specifically by themselves. If it's maybe just not following directions and it's hard to have them be able to be managed in a small group, they might have to, or they would benefit just meeting with me. Or they could be more serious topics, like if they're struggling in a certain area, maybe anxiety or something. I'll meet with the kids individually so that they just feel like they can open up and learn some new things. So that's a little bit about me. So now it's your turn. So if you could share your name and your child or your children's grade, And that also gives me an idea too, as far as how I want to tailor our conversation today. So go ahead.
I'm Michelle Johnson, and my child is Cole Johnson, and he is in third grade.
And you have an older.
I have an older son, yes. He's across the street at Gateway, so he's 8th grade. Thank you. I'm Denise Evanson. I have a kindergartner, Brooke, and a second grader, Ben. I am Ertzong, and I have a daughter in 5th grade, and I have a grown son who's out of school, but also a granddaughter of 6.
Okay, doesn't matter.
Go ahead.
Hi everyone. I'm Shruti. I have a son. He's in 4th grade, and I have a younger one. She's 2 years old.
I'm Kimberly Michelberry. My daughter is Song, and my granddaughter is in 5th grade. My name's Mike. I have a son in 2nd grade.
My name is Craig, and I have 2 daughters. One is in 3rd grade, one is in Jackson High in 10th grade. And then
Yep,
we have 2 people. And then if for those of you that are online joining us today, would you mind telling us about yeah.
My name is Devi, and I have one daughter who is in 2nd grade, and then my son is in 6th grade. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah.
And then who else is here? I see an iPhone.
Shannon Brown. Hi, guys.
Hi.
And I have Zachary Brown, who is in 4th grade.
Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thank you, guys.
Okay.
Well, tonight I was really wanting to focus on SEL, as I know a lot of people had interest in learning more about it. And SEL is such a huge topic, and it ranges. So, you know, I was really thinking about what our families could learn and use, things that we use here at school. So I just kind of wanted to bridge that connection of what the kids are learning here, as well as how you can support your child, and even the older ones too. So this is not age specific, and it sounds like we have a wide variety. So I'll just kind of generally speak, and then if there are situations or topics that we want to kind of go into, we should probably have enough time to do that since we don't have a lot of people here today. So we're going to talk about emotion regulation, and we're going to be discussing some practical strategies to use at home. And then I have some things for you to take home to use with your family. And so we're really going to be focusing on talking about emotions, how to recognize big feelings, and use coping skills to get back into a calm state. And all of this is a lot, but we'll kind of dive into it and talk a little more. So we're going to start off with understanding feelings and the brain. So I like to use the zones of regulation, and some of you may be familiar with it. It's part of the social thinking curriculum, if you want to call it that. It's now humongous with so many different areas that they've gone into. And I really like the zones of regulation. It's pretty easy to understand. And so the zones of regulation goes by 4 different colors. We have the blue zone, the green zone, the yellow zone, and the red zone. And there are other frameworks that use this similar colors, similar ideas, but I really feel like the zones of regulation is pretty easy to understand. So I'll describe each of the zones. So the blue zone right here, it's to describe a lower state of alertness. And that could be like sad, tired, bored, or sick. And then in the green zone, we use the words here to describe a regulated state of alertness. So it could be calm and focused and happy, ready to learn. And this is a zone that students generally need to be in for school and to being social. And the green zone shows that you're in control of your feelings, not necessarily that you're in control of everything, but that you're in a state of mind to be able to take in information, hopefully make good decisions, and then be able to move forward. So the yellow zone is used to describe a heightened state of alertness. And I like to tell students that when they're in the yellow zone, it's when your body starts to feel a little bit out of control. And a lot of times when we think about being out of control, we think of negative emotions like anger or frustration, but really it could be any kind of feeling where you start to get a little out of control. So it could be frustration, or it could be stressed, it could be anxiety, it could even be excitement or silliness and confusion. So you might be getting excited because you know that we're going to do something special after school, and maybe it might be really hard for them to focus, and they're not out of control, like they're, going crazy or anything. But it's just in their body, in their mind. They're out of that green state of being able to stay focused, listen to your directions and that kind of thing. And then in the red zone, is used to describe extremely heightened states of alertness or very intense feelings. I often will call them big feelings or big emotions. And these are feelings that you feel like you're out of control. So it could be anger or rage. It could be elated or out of control. And again, it's not just the negative feelings. It's when you're like overly excited. For example, you find out that if you're a child, if you find out that your family's going to Disneyland and you're just so excited, you can't go to sleep and you're not able to focus in school, and that's all you want to talk about is doing these things. And it's not that it's negative, but being in the red zone is really hard for us to follow directions, be able to learn, be able to make good decisions. So all the feelings are fine, they're okay, all the zones are okay. And if we want our children to be able to be in that state of mind where they can listen to your directions, follow directions, we really focus on trying to get back in the green zone for those moments of having to learn and be able to follow directions. It's totally fine to be in the yellow zone. Times and places is what I say to our kids. There's always times and places for everything. So next, let's talk about the brain. And in the brain, we have the amygdala. And the amygdala is your alarm center. And your alarm is going to be, the amygdala is going to be helping you process both positive and negative emotions, as well as the intensity of it. So when your child is highly upset or anxious or extremely sad or even highly elated, which is what we would call in the red zone, the alarm is going to go off. They're not choosing to misbehave. Their brain's thinking part, which is a prefrontal cortex, is just temporarily offline, where it's just not available. And so we have to figure out how to help them be able to get back into that state of mind to be able to think. So we have the regulation cycle, and if we start right here, the child has an unmet need or perceives a threat, and this could be focusing on the negatives, but it could also be something that they're just not able to control in the moment. So that's when they start to experience dysregulation, which means they're not regulated. They're not in a state of mind to be able to listen, follow directions, to learn. And we often, as parents, guardians, family members, we often will experience the stress when we see our children like this, even in a very excited state of mind. So when our child is supposed to be eating dinner and they're just running around because they're so excited because they have a birthday party to go to, they are hard to manage sometimes, right? Sit back down, or you need to get ready for bed, right? And that's the last thing they want to do, is to be able to get ready for bed. So we have to understand in ourselves that it can create stress, and not that it's necessarily negative stress, but it just adds a little stress for us. So then the adult is going to engage in self-regulation, and I'll go into a little bit more details about this in a little bit. The adult needs to protect, invalidate, and soothe, which we call co-regulating with our children, so that they could be, so that we could be a calm, sturdy presence for them to be able to get back into, if you want to call it, the green zone. So then we're going to help our children to regulate. We'll go over that in just a little bit. And you're going to be modeling and teaching self-regulation through this whole process. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that too. So sometimes we have to model when the child is so way off, and we have to help them through that. But we're also using the moments when they're not in that state of mind to be able to teach the skills, practice those skills, so that when they're in the moment, they're able to access those things. Are there any questions so far? Any questions? Okay. So here's what your role is as a parent or guardian or family member. So we sometimes have to be the external brain, the external prefrontal cortex. So like I said, they're not choosing to misbehave, but their brain is just not in the moment to being in the green zone. So we have to have a calm presence to be able to make sure we're calm, and to be able to help them calm down too. So let's break this down a little bit here. So step one is we have to regulate ourselves. So the regulation cycle, it's about us in the beginning, and then it's about helping the child. It's almost like when you're on the airplane and you have to put the oxygen on yourself, right? To be able to help your child. And if you don't do that, you're not going to be in a space to be able to help them. And then they're not going to be able to help themselves. So regulation starts with the adult, who must be regulated before beginning the co-regulation cycle. And you need to make sure that you stay regulated during the co-regulation cycle. And we'll talk a little bit about what happens if you get out of that cycle. So some of the things that you have to do is, one, you need to recognize your feelings. If you're fine, then it's easier to be able to move forward and trying to help your child. But if you're not in the right state of mind to be able to do that, you have to take care of yourself first. So what is that going to look like? Recognize what your feeling is. So if we're getting ready to go to Disneyland, I need my child to go to sleep, and I'm stressed because I need to pack, I need to do all of these things, and we have to catch an airplane and all of, right, everything else. I have to slow down a little bit. I need to calm down. Maybe I need to take a break for a little bit and say, go to your room, get ready for bed. Let me take a break, gather myself, and then we'll be able to hopefully go through the co-regulation together. And at any point during that whole process, when you're trying to get your child back into a zone where they're able to learn and listen and follow directions, you might have to keep doing this over and over. I mean, how many times do our kids get into a situation where we're just like, you need to go away, like, for a really long time, right? Because I can't talk to you, you can't talk to me, and neither one of us are in a state of mind to be able to have a conversation. And you start going, this is my son. He likes to argue a lot. And he's always argued ever since he was really little. And so having to take those breaks, and I'm not perfect at it, I still will engage in that and have those conversations, and then we don't go anywhere, right? So some of our children, it takes us over and over, doing the same things over and over, having to take a break, do something else. Sometimes being busy while doing this is helpful too, because then you're not focused on getting a little nitpicky with every single time it's always this, right? Any questions about regulating yourself? Or questions about what that might look like, or even an example? Go ahead.
I remember when the boys were really small, really young, and being told it was okay by the doctor to say, it's okay to set them down, they're not gonna move, if you need to go separate, take a break, have a quick cry in the bathroom, and come back, it's okay. And I still think there's, like you're saying, that there's different times and ways of still doing that progressively, and I know I find myself having to do that. You know what, you need to just eat your breakfast, I'm gonna go get myself ready, need to breathe, come back, why are you watching TV?
Yeah, right. It starts over with something else, right? Yeah, that's, anybody else want to share?
I just, the quote that I remind myself of is.
Recording in progress.
Oops.
Not that.
Sorry.
That, like, you can't teach like, when a person's drowning, you can't teach them to swim. So, like, if we're drowning in this interaction that we're having, like, there's no learning that's gonna happen. There's no, like, logic that's gonna happen, so, yeah, it's like, I need a timeout, so I'm gonna take my timeout, and I'll come back.
Exactly. It's so important and it's so easy though to get caught up in the moment and you want to get this done and we have places to go. And so we're gonna power through this argument or disagreement or cleaning the room or whatever it is, right? And it ends up taking twice as long, angry feelings, and they never forget those moments. Yeah.
And I think you said the right thing too, is I've learned later too, to just because we always say you need a timeout, it's like mom needs a timeout.
Yeah.
So that they know that it's like, it goes both ways. I need
Yeah.
a timeout, I gotta go check myself.
Yeah.
Breathe, and I'll be back with you in just a minute.
Yeah.
Exactly. So the modeling is just really important because it's not good when you're just constantly telling your child what to do, right? And they don't see you doing the same things. If you're not taking care of yourself, even if you have arguments with other adults, family members, friends, and that kind of thing, and you're not showing your child how to get through those moments, they're just gonna be like, well, why do I need to do it if you're not even taking care of yourself? So it is really important to make sure you model that. And it takes practice, trust me. I'm not perfect at that either, so. Okay, so the second step is co-regulation, and this is about supporting your child through listening and also your physical presence. So you don't necessarily have to touch your child. Some children do like to be touched, hugged, squeezed, but there are children who do not, and sometimes just sitting right next to them so they can feel your presence. If you're trying to calm them down and they're just in a state of mind where they're just kind of, they need to be by themselves. I mean, your own children, right? But it doesn't mean you just leave them. Because then if they calm down and you never come back to trying to go back and fix them or fix the situation or have that conversation, then they just learn how to kind of self-soothe themselves and not really learn that next step of skill of being able to move through those big emotions, right? It's an okay way of dealing with things, but it's really not the best because we don't want them to grow up as adults, just kind of going by themselves and they're not ever coming back and trying to fix the issue or try to make it better. Your tone of voice and volume, your voice calmness is really important when you're regulating your child. And that is really, really difficult to have that calm voice. I get really sarcastic. And so I have to bring back that sarcasm. And I'm not a yeller or a screamer, but that sarcasm, when I get really irritated, it comes out pretty quickly. So kind of a joke in my family, but so yourself, figure out ways if you're yelling and screaming, what can you do? And, take a break, work on your tone of voice, regularly is really helpful. So, and then, when you're talking with your child, approach them from the front or the side and not from the back. If anybody ever talks to you from the back, sometimes you feel threatened, you don't feel safe. And so when you have that face to face or even side by side with our children who don't necessarily like to look at us, but they want to feel your presence, I'll just sit next to a child or I'll sit next to my children, just so that they can feel that I'm engaged. This is really important, and they feel that way. Sometimes when you're with really little ones, obviously getting down to their level is really helpful because they're going to be more open to engaging in that level conversation versus feeling threatened by your body. Even if it's something like you need to calm down because we're going to Disneyland, you need to go to bed, still being able to show them that respect, being firm, but also showing them that you want to be able to engage and have a safe conversation. Any questions about co-regulation? Anybody have any examples of maybe something that you have done or maybe not done?
So I used to try to tell my daughter, like, take a breath with me or whatever. She'd be like, I'm afraid. I'm like, great. So then I would just start doing an exaggerated breath by myself, you know, like just. And I do it a couple times, and like sometimes she'll join me and sometimes she won't, but eventually, like I'll hear her at least like sigh and let out a little bit. So it's more like instead of using my words, using my actions, I felt to be the most um like the most beneficial. So yeah.
And sometimes talking in the moment, not in the moment, out of the moment. So like if you're driving, for example, you get really frustrated because someone just cut you off and you're really upset. Modeling then, because they're not in the moment, you might be, but you're modeling in the moment that doesn't really affect them, and their brain is going to be more open to watching you and think, oh, mom did that, out of the moment. Maybe I could try it too. So it gives them permission to do that. Any other examples or thoughts on that? Okay.
Even narrating like my emotions or what's going on, I found to be really helpful. And like with the example, somebody cuts me off, I'll be like, oh, I was really frustrated. But I don't know, maybe they're in a really big hurry, maybe they have like emergency. Like, wow, that really scared me. Like, but then like taking a breath and I don't know, it just kind of like narrating my internal thing that's happening. It seems to help like the kids understand what's happening, right? And like oh, this thing happened and I was really scared, and now this is how I'm coming back down. But then it has nothing to do with them. So definitely.
And it's teaching them that whole process that we want them to learn, to be able to recognize that within themselves, to feel the emotion, figure out what you're going to do in the moment. Sometimes it takes a little longer to figure out what you need to do, but yeah, talking through it. I do that all the time. My husband and I do that actually too, together. So when our daughter was throwing temper tantrums in high school, she would just not be in the state of mind to even manage herself, ripping up stuff and doing things. And my husband would just have these side conversations like, oh man, when I get really mad, I just want to put my head down. And so you give them that information, not directly at them. And sometimes they pick it up and sometimes they don't. I think they do. They just don't want you to know that they pick it up. So if you have someone else talking through situations, that's not directed at them, they tend to listen to it a little more. And a lot of times they tend to listen to adult conversations anyways, so it can be helpful to use that as an example, to just give them information even when they're in the moment, but it's not necessarily directed at them, but it kind of is in a sly kind of way. So any other examples of co-regulation that maybe you tried out?
I won't say it's a example, the co-regulation, have been failing at that, but there have been moments where I would go to my son after the whole drama is over, and then I'm like, okay, I think I'm sorry. I was relentless, and that triggered me, and I shouldn't have raised voice, and can you forgive me, please? That sort of, and that kind of, calms him down, and when he's like, okay, don't worry, I'll forgive you. So that bonds and reconnects us again. So yeah.
And keeping that relationship in mind, to mend it in the moment or mend it after the moment is also really helpful, because again, you're modeling what you want them to do. And even though you didn't do a good job of it, I mean, all of us don't do good jobs at lots of things, right? But to be able to talk them through it is also really good. Yeah, I like that example. Any other ideas? Okay. And next, step 3 is teaching the self-regulation. And we kind of talked a little bit about that. I like to use, this is from the Zones of Regulation, Social Thinking, The Road to Regulation. And there's some books that I'll use with students. Show them to you. The first one is The Road to Regulation. And it goes through the whole process for children to learn themselves what they need to do to regulate. So they're getting the information for themselves, as well as when we're in this cycle, when you're parenting or around children, you can talk them through this. And then the regulation station is the next book after that, and this is just, it takes the kids, the same kids, in a situation where they're actually practicing coping skills. And so, that's another good one. They're kind of long, so it's hard to keep their attention to do the whole thing. But it's nice that I chunk it down when I meet with students, and teach them that. But here's what it looks like. So step one, how do I feel? So, in second step, we call it name your feeling. So you're naming your feeling, you're saying what you're feeling, just kind of what you said. I was anxious, I was worried, I was scared, I was so excited. So you're naming your feeling, how do I feel? And then you're gonna put it in a zone, because once you put it in a zone, you can kind of navigate what you need to do next. And it helps them recognize that, it's not a bad thing. But it's not in the green zone. And if I want to listen to my parents, if I want to be able to learn in school, then I need to do some things to be able to get to that zone where I know that's what I need to do, to be able to manage myself. So you can, ask your child, or your child will hopefully be able to learn eventually what zone they're in. And you can ask them, what zone do you think that is? Oh, so you're anxious? What zone do you think that is? Or you're so excited we're going to Disneyland. What zone do you think that is? Okay, and then you're able to talk about what are some of the tools, that you need to use or do in order to regulate those motions. And I'll give you some examples. I brought some tools today, and I have some handouts and things for you guys to use. And then you're going to want to encourage them to use a tool. So if breathing, right, like you were saying, you're breathing with your child, you're wanting them to follow you, may not exactly work. But you're using it and you're encouraging them to use it. Eventually, hopefully they'll be able to regulate themselves in their own moments as they get older. And then they're going to figure out what tools are going to work for them. And then hopefully then we can be able to move on and get back into the green zone. So, and it matches the 4 zones. It keeps kind of everything aligned. So you're showing them in different kinds of ways. Let's see here. So some practical strategies, this is kind of a review, is that you're going to model the regulation and co-regulation, and then teach them the road to regulation, and hopefully they'll be able to do that themselves. And then building a toolkit. So they're going to learn a whole bunch of different things. And sometimes they may be things that you didn't even know it was going to work, like they pick up something and they really like it. So the best time to do this is when they're out of moments, right? When they're in the green zone, and you can have these conversations about what would be really helpful. So I brought some things today. These are weighted, actually. And even though they look like stuffies, they are, and he's actually really, really soft. And he matches inside out too. So we used this guy embarrassment, I don't remember what his name is for sure. But he's weighted, so he can sit on your lap. Sometimes kids just need compression. I know for me, what I like is I like to tighten myself up like in a blanket, and for some reason, just that tightness, compression, it just helps regulate any kind of anxious feelings, or even to help me to go to sleep. I have a weighted blanket that I actually use. But there's all different kinds of weighted things. You don't have to buy things, but you can find things. There's weighted ones that go on the neck. What I use here for some of our students who are really, really squirrely, and they're just kind of all over, they're up and down out of their seats. I have a backpack and I have an old school dictionary in it, or 2, depending on how old they are. And inside the backpack, sometimes I'll ask the student to come to my office, hey, will you take this backpack to your teacher? And they put on the backpack and they walk back. And then sometimes the teachers will keep it in the classroom and they put the backpack on and they deliver it back to me. So just being able to have that compression in what they would seem like a normal thing to do in school, use that backpack to regulate themselves and calm themselves down, and just that distance from wherever their classroom is to my office will help regulate. So find things that you may need to use around the house, it could be like lifting things, you know, like maybe you want them to move big bins of, I don't know, books or something. And maybe they just need to move that. Or maybe they need to push up against a wall because that pressure, it just tends to regulate their body. You know, that could be really helpful. So let me see what I have here. I'll pass I made copies of the roach regulation so that you don't have to kind of look that up. And as well as the zones of regulation, so you can do that. And I will pass this one out to you right now so you can take a look at it. I'll check the big ones. So was not, I should say, like breathing, I thought never would do anything for me. And I used to fight it, kind of like how yours and your daughter does. And I have found though, by finding fun ways that I can actually picture in my mind, is helpful. So sometimes the way you breathe might be different than the way I want to breathe. My favorite, so I gave you those 4 pictures, and there's so many different things out there, but these are my 4 favorites. And it says worry warrior, don't mind that. Breathing is breathing, right? It doesn't matter what a big emotion you might be feeling. It can work for anything. So my favorite is the birthday cake, and it's really easy to imagine. So what I do is I tell the kids to close their eyes and think about your favorite flavor of cake or some kind of sweet treat that you can smell. So imagine that. I'll say chocolate. I like the smell of chocolate. Piece of chocolate. And so what I do is I breathe in my cake. Oh, I love that chocolate smell. And then blow out my candles. And so when you're teaching that to them, you're modeling it. The kids get to choose their favorite cake smell. And so then even thinking about your favorite flavor of something helps ground them. It helps bring them back down into a calmer state. And then being able to actually physically blow out something, it just does something biologically to your body. I can't go into the scientifics, I don't know it, but I know that just exhaling is really helpful. And I also have pinwheels are really easy. I mean, you could make a family project if you've got little ones to make a pinwheel. I think I got this at the dollar store, but to be able to blow it out is basically the same thing as breathing, right? And they have no idea they're doing that. So using a pinwheel is a good idea. Blowing bubbles. They actually sell scented bubbles. If you didn't know that already, I love scented everything. So I worked at a behavior school before I came here, and I would have a whole bunch of different scents of bubbles. And when I had a kid come into my office, a student come into my office, I wouldn't tell them what I was doing. But if they were just dysregulated, hey, what kind of flavor of bubbles do you want to blow today? And so they'd pick the grape ones or that apple, and they would blow it. And a lot of times the smaller bubbles don't like do much. And so then they have to really work on managing their breath and being able to hold it and push it out. And so just doing those things in a fun kind of way is really, really helpful. So I love anything that has to do with sense and breathing. The Rainbow Warrior is one, for the little kids, it's a little harder to imagine, but if you had like your small version that I gave to you, what I do is, and there's no right or wrong way to do this, but you're going to teach them, you're going to inhale, and they actually physically are going to move their finger and then exhale. And they're going to go back and forth. I mean, obviously, the bigger it is, the longer it's going to take. But even the little size can be really helpful because now they're focusing on something instead of focusing on their big feeling. And so you do this and you can model it or you can have them do it. And pretty soon they're starting to relax. So that one's a fun one to do. The 5-finger one is one that a lot of times the older kids will like because it's really discreet. And so the way I teach them is you start at the wrist and you inhale and then you exhale and then you're inhaling, not that fast, obviously, but you're inhaling and then you're exhaling. And they could do this under their desk. If they have a sweatshirt or something, they could do it in a pocket, you know, so again, physically doing something, tracing your other hand, they're focusing on that instead of, oh my goodness, I'm whatever, however they might be feeling. So the 5-finger breathing is good. Good for anybody. And then I showed you the pinwheel one too. Some people will have items such as the breathing ball. I don't know if that's really the name of it, but we will use this same thing. So you're inhaling and then you're exhaling. And you can tell them how many times you want to do that. I have this in a bin right in my office or outside of my office, and the kids will just go in and even kind of doing this and looking at it. It mesmerizes them and they just tend to calm down just even by looking at it by themselves. So those are some breathing ones. Another idea is to create a calm box. Creating a calm box or a calm down box or regulation box, whatever you want to call it. This is one that I made for a student, and she would have this in her desk. And the one that you can make, you're going to choose items from each of these categories, and this uses their senses. This could be something maybe that they have in their bedroom. So maybe if you're sending them into their room and, you know, they're trustworthy enough to have these items, you know, in a box or container in their room, maybe even putting this up if you identify what each of the things are. And it's not just for anxiety, it's for any kind of feeling. Again, I'm really driven by smells. Smells can make me either make me not feel good, or it helps me feel good. Peppermint is one of my favorites. And so just having something pepperminty, you know, obviously for kids, you're not going to have them light a candle or anything, but just even an essential oil, it could be in something that they own already. So even like a stuffy or a blanket, usually the oils don't do much. Just make sure you find one that's a little better made than some others. Or even putting it like on a cotton round or a cotton ball. Some students have actually made some at home and brought them. I didn't even tell them to do this, but they'll say, Mrs. McNeal, this is my favorite smell. It was lavender, because I guess their family, they used a lot of lavender and that was very calming for them. And so they would show me, Mrs. McNeal, look at, I have this in a container, and if I get really anxious, I smell it. And so they have figured out, their families have helped figure out some smells that are really bring them back into that green zone state. For tasting, again, I'm a mint person. So if I were to put something to eat or chew on, it might be like a mint or gum. That always helps. It just helps in every way for me. Sometimes chewing on things will ground them too. Their body is now focusing on doing something, right? And they're not thinking about doing it because they're automatically going to chew it, whether it's gum or granola, or if they can have nuts or something. Chewing on something, they're finding out that it does something to your body where it just kind of grounds you again. And you don't have to say anything, right? They just think they're getting a snack, you know, have it be a crunchy snack or something that they'll enjoy and be able to calm down. We have listening devices. Your family can decide if that's appropriate or not. And then the touching ones. So touching is kind of a trial and error kind of thing. So I have one example that I use is a tangle. And sometimes if I have this on my desk because I'm showing kids how to use it, I'll just pick it up and I'm just kind of, you know, doing this. It's usually not that loud, but you know, just kind of putting it on my finger and that kind of thing. It's not distracting to anybody else. We really try to teach a toy versus a fidget. So a fidget is a tool, but a toy is something that, you know, is more fun and can be distracting for you or other people. So having things that they can touch. I like squishy, like those mochi kinds of slow rising ones. You know, they make them really small, they have big ones, they have huge ones, you know, like the squishmallows, it's kind of a form of that where they can squish it and it kind of slowly goes out. So finding things that you have around that house or gifts or however you want to do it, maybe they can earn special things, you know, if they regulate themselves, you know, really well for a time being or something. This is another one that's kind of a squishy, and you can actually make one similar to this, kind of preschool reminds me of filling up a bag with like foam. You know, you can put glitter in them, color it, or even Play-Doh would be another one. But this one always is relaxing to me. I just like to push things. And then you have your visuals. So I had a student who was very fixated on just watching the timer and very anxious. Okay, that's kind of broken. She's quite anxious, and so she would just sit and she would just watch it just drip, drip, drip. You know, so that one's pretty calming. And then I make the glitter jar with the kids. Yeah, in some of my groups, and you can use this again for any big emotion. And the way I describe this is that when you have glitter, it's kind of like your brain and your when you're dysregulated, I don't say that word then, but when you're having big emotions, your brain is doing this, right? And it's just kind of all over the place. And sometimes we just have to stop. And we just have to let it kind of fall. So we're teaching them in a visual kind of way that we can relax ourselves by visualizing that. So that one is helpful. There's some recipes out there to make the glitter fall slower than others instead of just water. This one has oil, glycerin, and glycerin in it. So those are just some of the tools that I have. Does anybody have any tools that you have that you have found that has helped your child?
Going back to the breathing, and you had mentioned it, but I had listened to something a while back, and it was when a child was really overstimulated, to help ground them. It's like, just what color are your shoes? And it kind of snaps them in. Oh, and then they're able to like, okay. And I've had to do that with some of my neighbors' kids that come over and they have severe ADHD or something, and I'm like, what color pants are you wearing? Why does that matter? Just tell me what color pants. Blue. And then all of a sudden they're like more grounded.
Yeah, so distracting them, I do that a lot too when kids come to my office and they're crying and we start just talking about random things. You know, that distraction part, because now they're having to think about answering your question, right? Or where did my mom get that? Or where did we go to get that? You know, so that's always helpful. And I wrote down some of the websites for in some of the books, and I'll send everyone the slideshow. We'll make sure we get that out to everybody. And so for the home activity, we're not going to be able to do it today, but I have two options for you to take home with you. The first one is making a booklet. Making a booklet, and this is good for some of the younger students. And so in each of the sets, you can take as many copies as you need. They can decorate it. I think I decorated mine. At one point, I decorated with students, and they can decorate it. And then I also gave you a list of coping skills that they can cut out the ones that would be helpful for them in each of the zones. Sometimes reading is helpful for certain feelings in the zones, and sometimes it's not for the others. And they can always draw the pictures if they need to use that same coping skill in the different zones. But I thought that would be helpful to give you some ideas. The kids can cut them out and actually glue them in there if that would be helpful. So I have that. And then maybe you might have an older child who does not want to cut things out. And so I have this for you so they can write it out. You can also do the same with the coping skill sheet, and they can cut them out and just glue them under the same zones. And this is really helpful to do with them, and then have it where you can say, oh yeah, it looks like you're really anxious right now, nervous about something. You know, what can you do to get yourself back into the green zone to be able to do your performance or to play a game or to take that test or whatever it is. So just really helping them and having tools around. Because it's gonna, you're normalizing, right? Having big emotions. It's a nice visual to be able to remind them, because a lot of times in the moment, they're not gonna be there to be able to access all those things that you've been teaching them and talking to them about. So those are two things for you to take with you. I'll leave them out here for you to take. Those two go together, and then I already made the sets for the other one, and we can make these available for our students that are online too. So that is the end of it. Any questions? See if there's any questions.
If anyone online has a question or something they'd like to add, feel free to just unmute. Oh, Shannon?
Hi, that was awesome. I wish I could have been there in person. Such valuable information, and it's just so nice to come together with other parents and share and get knowledge that we all probably need. So I really, really appreciate you putting this together and being a part of it. It was really, really incredible.
Okay, thanks. We missed
Yeah.
you.
I know my house is a little chaotic right now with two kids running around it, ready to be out of school tomorrow.
Oh, yeah, you know how it is, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Thanks, Shannon.
Will the online participants get copies of these? Because these are like.
Yeah, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna scan them and put it into a file, and then you guys can just share them out to the families or have them be available. Just so that they have everything they can, or they can come into school too and come get a set.
We'll probably end up creating like a healthy living
File resource.
resource spot. Yeah.
Yeah.
Shannon approves.
Oh, okay, great. You know what? My information, I also have my business card here too, if you need to get hold of me, come to school, it doesn't really matter. But thank you guys so much, for being the firsts and my first here doing this too. I'm excited to participate more in these, so thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Miss McNeal. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, the raffle. Yes, I'll do the raffle.
Bye. Good
Oh,
luck.
hey, wait.
We'll do the raffle.
Okay. We're going to also include the people who logged in online. We'll set aside tickets for them too. Yeah.
Okay.
How do you pronounce your name again?
Oh, so my name, I will send message. It's Devi Gopal.
Okay.
And then, so, should I share my email ID or?
Oh, no. That's fine.
Oh, okay.
That's fine.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Raffle.
Yeah,
Bye.
we're doing a raffle and you can
Oh,
wait
okay.
to see if you're one of the lucky winners.
Oh, okay. And there was couple of papers
Heavy go
shared
down.
in the end. So, how can I get it, Mrs. McNeil? So sorry, if I can share the email or.
Craig, can you have them type their email addresses in the chat? And
It-
Uh-huh. Okay, sure. I'll do that. Thank you so much.
We'll get those to you, yes. Okay, so here are options for prizes. I'll pick 4 winners. I have a sticker that